3, 2.
Hello, Graham. I would like to let you know that we do have a website that allows for monthly donations, that you can put a small amount towards this program per month that lets us know that you guys are invested in having this program to continue and gives us the time to put towards this program in order to make it the best that it can be. Thank you so much to everyone who is already over on our Patreon page. For those of you who don't know what that is, there's a little link below. It's patreon.com/T3. And if you could check it out, that'd be great. Thanks so much.
Well, hello again. Good to see you.
And welcome back, everyone, to T at 3, Looking for Good. Here we are again, and we have something that we need to tell you. So we've been talking about how Graham and I are coming together from a 60-year age gap. Now, for the past month and a half, it was actually only a 59-year age gap, but today is Graham's birthday!
Yay!
So we're back at our 60-year age gap. No longer 26 and 86, we're now 27 and 87.
Yeah. Ah, that feels so good to have caught you up. Yes, well, and how is the world treating you at this very moment? That's what I want to know.
You know, it's all right. I just, out of kind of nowhere, had kind of a like nightmare-filled sleep, which always like puts me in a weird fog the next day. But I think one of my biggest discoveries of this week that has like been a good counter to that feeling is that like feel like I'm beginning to master like mentally, or being able to mentally change how I feel physically. Whereas in the past, whenever I like felt kind of bad, I'd be like, oh no, I feel bad. Okay, I'm gonna feel bad, and then it makes me feel worse. Whereas I'm working on, for the past like month, but mostly the past week, I've been working on being like, when I start to feel bad, just be like, no, okay, breathe. All right, what can I do to make myself feel better? And I like just even thinking about like feeling better is actually helping me physically feel better, which is insane. But very cool.
Isn't that, have you ever done a thing that I'm going to call it by a different name that other people would call it? And I'm going to call it soaking in a quote. There may be a quote that you have from someone. For example, mine is Oliver Wendell Holmes. I don't give you a fig for simplicity this side of complexity, but I would give my life for simplicity on the other side of complexity. So when you think about that, it means if our present day lifestyle is complicated, which I think everybody would agree it is, that he's saying, I would give my life for simplicity on the other side of all of that complexity doing this. And just that I would find a measure of peace on that side. Mm-hmm. Now, here's what you do is just soak in it. That very deep breathing thing where you count up to about 4, fill your diaphragm and your thing, and then breathe out slowly. So you're whispering it out. And do that 4 times. Now that's going to drop your blood pressure by about 10 points. And just dropping blood pressure 10 points, it feels different because you've done that. So then shake out any kind of stuff thing that you've got. And you know, all of this could be before meditation. But when it's meditation, it puts it into a different category. What I then do is I would not give you a fig for simplicity this side of complexity, but I would give my life for simplicity on the other side of complexity. I would not give. So I'm repeating the quote. So I actually screen out of my mind the other random thoughts because I've got to pay attention to the quote. So I literally lie in the quote for the repetitive repeating of the quote for about 10 minutes. All right. And then see how I feel at the end of that. There is something for me that's totally remarkable about that one. I can be so confused, and I can sit and I'm no longer confused. I don't have the answer,
Mm-hmm.
but I'm no longer trying to chase it. I've settled down enough to soak in it. And that's what I think partially what you and I have been doing for months is pondering, because we knee jerk when we're with each other because we haven't discussed these things beforehand. And then we take a week to think about these things carefully. And by the end of the week, when we come back together on that subject, we seem to be settled and not confused anymore. Do you think that's true?
Yeah, and I like how you've put it where like we're settled, we're not like we haven't found an answer. But yeah,
Good,
yeah,
good.
that part I like a lot because it's like, yes, I feel confident in that I have thought about this, but never really feel very secure in like having found a solution necessarily.
Yes. Do you know there are some wise people in our past, all the way back, whose wisdom has been written down for us to be able to find and read? And there are some very smart people today who want us to get to think differently than all of that wisdom, because they need to corner us to get us to do something, to
Mm.
buy their vacuum cleaner or vote for their candidate, whatever it is. And they really work hard at getting your and my attention. And that's part of why we're so confused. There's a very elaborate way of doing away with wisdom and coming up with an actionable statement that gets us to knee jerk pretty well immediately. I think that's true. And I think when we do, the best thing to do then is go find yourself a quote that you like and soak in it.
Yeah, actually what kind of started this for me, this thought process of like mentally trying to change how I feel physically was that at one point when we were traveling, I would went in to get getting my COVID test and they like checked my pulse and it was really high because I'm like nervous to go into a clinic at the moment, as
Okay.
maybe like probably most people are. And the doctor was just like, like taking a couple deep breaths like actually is really good for you and actually does help. And I was like, what? Why would, but that's not, what, wait, what do you mean? Like, how could just taking a couple deep breaths like heal me? And then I've been like really trying to put that into practice and it does really help. Like every time I get overwhelmed, I'm like, okay, just like stop and like actually take a couple really big deep breaths. And it helps a lot. It's crazy.
Have you ever been scuba diving?
I've been snuba where like the tank is in a little raft and you have like the cord
Oh,
down.
yes.
Yeah,
Yes.
I've done that.
Okay.
It's
Well,
really-
you know, therefore, that you are at that stage, gaining um, oxygen or, yes, gaining air in
Mhm.
order to keep you breathing under the surface. So when you take a deep breath, it's like putting an oxygen tank onto your red blood cells
Mm.
in your blood. And the oxygen adheres to the red blood cell. When it gets up to the blood-brain barrier of the brain, the oxygen is released from the red blood cells into the brain. Now, the brain eats and consumes about 1.75 liters of oxygen a day. So when you're breathing deeply, you are delivering greater levels of oxygen for your brain to eat, if you will. So your brain sharpens up. You remember the old Coca-Cola thing, the pause that refreshes? You're too young for that, but some of my things, the pause that refreshes.
Okay.
What was really saying, there was a good shot of sugar which got the blood sugar going, where the oxygen was able to connect and deliver more oxygen into the brain. Same thing, it made you feel better.
Hmm.
So that's why people who take a candy bar feel a bit better, because they get an oxygenation that takes place through increased blood sugars. So anyway, that's sort of the basic science of it, but it works, doesn't it?
Yeah, it really does. It's funny that I have such a weird like thought that it wouldn't. Like I don't know why it's so ingrained in me that this is like shocking that it works. Like it seems weird that I wouldn't believe in it, but I mean, I don't know. The brain's just kind of has weird. We have so many preconceived notions that like we don't even know where they came from, and it's just every time I run into them, I'm like, why do I think that? Like, what does that even come from?
I understand that completely. I think it's also helpful when we can know something really well and it really means a lot to us and we remember it, like I do Oliver Wendell Holmes, and be able to recite that to ourselves. It happens obviously with scripture from a Christian point of view, and a Jewish point of view and a Muslim point of view. But, they've all got words out of the book which mean something to them and are wise in season. So, and I have had the most amazing thing that happened to me today. In
Woohoo!
Yes, within 25 minutes of now. I had to rush from a meeting, which was wonderful, by the way, and down to the store to get a couple of birthday cakes for myself and a 98-year-old lady who has her birthday, lives in the same community as mine.
Oh,
So
nice.
I'm a mere chicken, and she is 98. And if I can be as sharp as she is at 90, if I ever live that long, I would be out of my mind. She is just absolutely wonderful person that everybody really, really loves. I won't embarrass her with telling you her name, but I went down and I got the local, bakery because I don't have the time to be able to do it myself. I don't much like piping stuff on cakes anyway. So I got her a cake and I got me a cake. So because we're going to have a joint birthday party on virtual birthday party later on today. And and as I came back, I put these two cakes on my passenger side seat because I wanted to deliver it on my way back, but I didn't have time. And this stupid man ahead of me suddenly decides that there's a lovely view and he wants to stop to see the view. Screeches on his brakes, and I have to jam on mine, and the cake went boom
Oh no!
off, and it turned over. I watched it in slow motion as it fell on the decorated side on the bottom of my cup. Now, I had two cakes, and there was nothing on the outside to let me know whose cake was whose. One was mine, and one was hers, you see? So I'm driving all the way back and looking at this upside down cake, thinking to myself, I wonder which one that is. So I was secretly, privately, but intensely praying that it would be my cake that was turned upside down and not hers. And it was.
Hey!
And so when I got back and I brought it in and I turned it upside down and I cut the thing to open it up to see what had happened to it, the word Graham has been squashed a little bit. But you have no idea how joyful it made me feel to see my squashed name and not all the piping was fine, but it's just my name's a bit squashed. So I must decrease so that he can increase, that she can increase. But anyway.
Yeah,
So
and at least you got to see it before it got squashed. If hers had got squashed, she would have never gotten to see how it was.
That's right. Yes. And so I just love that. And then there's this business of, and I think we should talk about it somehow. I don't know quite how, but as you know, it's you just open your mouth and go, ah.
Sometimes.
So we have a change of president. For some people, that is, oh no, and for other people, it's whoopee. So there tends to be, I find people are either glum or happy. But I have found a group of people who are very busy at the present moment, taking a kind of laser sight across this divisive time that we're living in, and throwing the laser across and taking measurements in order to put two posts either side in this chasm, and then cement them in place so that they don't move, and begin to build a bridge. And the point of the bridge is to cantilever over into the middle somewhere and meet the other side coming the other way, with an arch in between that throws the pressure of that bridge this way into their side and that way, and so that these two halves of the bridge are entirely funded and supported by the enthusiasm of opposition, of people who are opposed to each other, for one reason that they agree to: we can't let the nation suffer because of division. We just can't let it, a nation can't stand with this. So both sides know that. That's what they're trusting, that we must do it. And we meet in the middle for a more perfect union. And when we do, the left, which is blue, and the right, which is red, becomes orange, like a beautiful sunset from side to side. Not purple, but
I was
orange.
gonna say, don't those colors make purple? Okay.
Yeah, no, forget the purple thing. I just love orange. I like the idea of an orange. So there you go. And I'm so excited by this. I think it makes all the sense in the world, rather than build a red bridge or a blue bridge so that everybody becomes red or blue. You know that's never going to happen. So if it's never going to happen, what do we do to get a more perfect union? We won't get a perfect one, but we will get a more perfect one if we start building bridges towards each other. And gradually, and sitting down and talking, just so I'm really happy about that. I can't tell you how buoyant I feel. Yeah.
Yeah, that's great. It's weird because I don't know how to say this either.
Go on.
Just like
Go on.
over, it's hard to still want to like go to the middle of the bridge after like waiting 4 years on one side or what have you, like it just feels like constantly been like trying to go to the middle and not feeling like the other side's always going to the middle, and it can be exhausting, but like there are lots of things that are exhausting that are still important to do. So
yes,
yeah, just like it's good to continually be reminded that like it's possible to meet in the middle and work together.
You know what I mean by a siege machine, the catapult thing?
Yeah.
It would take a boulder and flip it. I think we've spent the last 4 years flipping boulders backwards and forwards across this chasm. And I think the chasm's got worse because of that. So I think that what we need to do is pull the catapult stuff back from the edge and just drive the stake in place of the fact that we love this nation and we don't want to see it fail. And because the only way it's not going to fail is when we meet together and we talk. So somehow there has to be a bridge, because it's just too darn difficult to climb down into the chasm and back up the other side. It's so daunting as to be impossible. We actually must have some kind of a bridge that does it. And I think that's been the same with warring parties forever in the history of our world. They have eventually got together. I know one side is usually lost, but they get together to try and make peace and try and live with it. And I think that's what we've got to try and do. We've got to live with a better view of the future, a more hopeful one.
So,
Yeah, I mean, if you think about the oil sands of Alberta, which must be amongst the dirtiest fuel source in the world, anywhere, being piped across the United States, across ancestral lands that we stole from North American Indian people, down to refineries, which are highly pollutant, source of, in order that we produce an energy source which we know is adding to the carbon problem that we have in our world today, then there has to be a sense of joy about the fact that that pipeline has once again been stopped. But the people who were building the pipeline have got to be really ticked off, and we understand that somehow. So rather than come to fisticuffs and getting angry about it, let's just sit down once again and talk about it. I think it's possible that we human beings, when we're removed from anger, have a real possibility of being able to not compromise, but find some way of living together. Seems to me.
yeah, I mean, we're all still here.
And we have to find a way for the rest of the world because they watch us. I spoke to my grandson today in Kosovo, and he tells me that the world himself has been sitting in front of the TV watching America. And as an American, he has felt, oh, dear Lord, there are so many people who take what the United States is doing as some kind of a template of what works. And they're seeing something that doesn't seem to be working. And that worries them because where do you go for something that works? So I think we've got an added responsibility in the United States to consider that we're being observed. And we should be observed talking to each other. Yeah. Like you and I.
Yeah, exactly. So one other thing that I kind of get in trouble for often, but something that like helps organize my brain when I'm like trying to comprehend a lot of things at once is that I end up reorganizing my like living spaces.
Okay.
And so like earlier today, I have a closet that I had previously just like it didn't have a door. And so I just like put a curtain over it and like haven't really touched it. And it had become just this like big pile of things of just like I'd been pulling the curtain back and like tossing something in there and pulling curtain back over. And that's like that it became like a physical representation of my mental state of just like my mental state is this giant pile of objects and shoved behind a curtain. And so like to be able to take all that stuff out and like sit and breathe and think about it and then like put it back in an organized way and like move on was I don't know, my husband gets mad at me sometimes because I end up like rearranging all of our rooms and everything, like all the furniture and everything, like every 2 weeks. But it's helpful for me to have that sort of like little physical reset so that I can have a little bit of a mental reset as well and like notice a passing of time because like I'm in a different physical environment. Nothing's just like the same day by day.
Thank you for being such a real person. Because, I mean, I'm a typical male and I suffer from exactly the same thing that you do. If there's a cupboard somewhere, it's going to have a bunch of stuff inside there. And I think when I put it in there, I need to remember that I put it there. And every so often I get this time to be able to reorganize my life, open the cupboard, pull it all out and put it all in neat little piles, yes, and throw some of it out.
Here's what's happening.
Yes.
What would Trina do is in the moment, she would jump out of a cake and sing you happy birthday. And it's going to be horrible because singing happy birthday over Zoom is horrible. Ready, Faith?
Okay.
Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday
birthday to
to you. Happy birthday, dear Graham. Happy
happy birthday to
you.
Thank you. And just to conclude, you have your curtain, I have my cupboard, and the President of the United States has a White House. And he's doing exactly the same thing that we're doing. Yeah.
Yeah, we are all human. And we all
Amen.
make mistakes and have messy cupboards sometimes.
So good to be with you, my dear.
Yeah, you too. And thank you so much to everyone out there watching. We hope you enjoyed Tea at 3 Looking for Good. I am Faye Schmidt. This is Graham Kerr, and we will see you next week. Also, if you are not subscribed, please do so and like the video if you enjoyed watching. Thanks. See you next week.
See you next week.